And greetings from Las Vegas after a wild week one of pro football. Now we're getting ready for week two. Are San Fran and Dallas really that good? Are New York and Pittsburgh really that bad? Well, we're going to dive in. Beat the Odds starts right now.
From our Las Vegas studios, this is Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook Westgate Las Vegas.
Welcome inside our Las Vegas studio. I'm Dave Hall.
And I'm Mariah Janos. Week one of pro football went exactly how we thought, right? Absolutely not. Some teams we thought would look good looked lousy, and some teams we thought would be lousy looked pretty good.
All right, if you had a rough week one, here's a little pearl of wisdom from the great one himself, Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Look at you, spitting knowledge today. So yeah, let's keep shooting that.
Let's do it. Coming up on today's show, Fat Jack and Teddy will talk about the week one stunners, week two trends we could follow, and after a rough game, can Joe Burrow bounce back?
Plus, the Achilles tear felt around the world. I'll get into Gangrene's updated season-long odds. Plus, Brandon Marshall is here to tell us what an injury like that does for the mental state of a team. I'll be back shortly. Dave, I'll send it over to you.
All right, thank you, Mariah. Back with the boys. How are you guys?
Doing great. Week one of the books, right?
Can I drop another famous quote?
You can drop it.
Okay. Everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. Wise words from Michael Tyson.
Yeah, you know, a really overused quote also, but it applies in so many different situations.
That's why it's overused.
Pick yourself up, put on your big girl pants and go, right?
Let's go. Well, you start us, Jack, with one of the stunners.
There were some stunners, and the G-men have to jump off the page, I guess. Down early, making lots of mistakes. Might want to rethink the way they handle the preseason, because this is a team that just did everything wrong until the game was pretty much over. And against good competition, you just can't do that. So they've got a lot to improve on.
How about you, Teddy? Who was your stunner?
Oh, when it comes to stunners, look, I had a real good show last week. We gave out 5 picks. I won 4 of them. But the one that I was wrong on couldn't have been more wrong. Seattle and L.A. I was shocked by that game. I'm still shocked thinking about that game. L.A. marching the ball up and down the field. Seattle completely inept, basically on both sides of the ball. That, to me, was a pretty big shocker.
And one of the buzzwords you hear after week one is overreaction, don't overreact. So what are some tips of advice you have there, Jack?
Yeah, just keep in mind that your teams are going to regress back to the middle. So if they played really well, they're going to probably do worse. Really bad, they're going to improve. And you can look at the stats, and it plays out. About 60% of the time, teams that got beat by double digits in week one will come back and cover in week two. Teams that won by double digits will also do the same thing. They'll come back and cover. Two lost teams play the underdog. So look for value in teams that played bad just a week ago.
So perhaps the G-men that you mentioned might fall under that category.
Among others, exactly.
Yes. Sure, not the only team that looked bad last week.
No doubt.
But certainly one of them. But, Jack, the numbers clearly show that your analysis is correct. Since 2010.
Way to go, Jack.
That's right. Do my best.
Since 2010, teams off a loss, 0-1 teams versus 1-0 teams, it's the 0-1 teams who are the winners. 1-0 teams, 41-61 against the point spread. That's losing money. So it's the winless team that comes out hungry, and the 1-0 team tends to be a little bit fat and happy. There is one caveat. We have 0-1 teams who lost last week as a favorite. Those teams have been good long term, 41-30 against the spread. So if you lost last week as chalk, this might be the week that they bounce back. Buffalo, Denver, Seattle, and Cincinnati all fall into that category this week.
For maybe some of the new bettors out there who are kind of new to this world, you know, week one was so weird. Is that common, especially now, like Jack, you were talking about, so many teams don't play their guys in the preseason that you kind of don't know what you're getting?
I talked about it last week. I mean, divisional underdogs had hit 72% of the time in week one. They were 5-2 last week. So the trends continue. In this league, you've got to be okay betting uncomfortable teams. And so you're going to get value on teams that you don't want to walk up to the window and play. All these line setters, they have television sets. They know what's supposed to happen, and so they create those lines where there's value in the dogs.
All right. Yeah, and that's very true, Jack. I mean, oftentimes you'll see the teams that looked their worst in week one come back week two with a whole different mindset and a whole different performance.
A lot of parity.
All right, you guys hang tight. We'll get back to you. Well, the biggest story in betting football now continues to be Coach Prime and his Colorado kids. Mariah is at the Superbook Westgate Las Vegas with more.
Thanks, Dave. I'm here with EVP of Superbook Operations, Mr. Jay Kornegay. Jay, week 1 was very surprising. A lot thrown at us there, but how did you guys do here at the book?
Well, we got off to a great start. I mean, the atmosphere was electric. A lot of people were anticipating this week 1. Great action on both Saturday and Sunday. Sunday, we were one game away of having a huge Sunday, but overall, a great kickoff to the season.
Now, I want to switch over to the college game for a second because Colorado and Coach Prime have taken the betting world by storm. I just want to get your thoughts on that team.
Well, Colorado has been receiving a lot of press coverage, especially in the gaming world, but we just really haven't seen that, here. And I've talked to many other operators, and I think it might have been overblown a little bit. We actually wrote twice as much money on that Alabama-Texas game than we did Nebraska-Colorado game. So there was a lot of interest in it, a lot of tickets on that Nebraska-Colorado game, but I can't rank it as one of the best or biggest bet games ever.
Now switching back to the pros, week 2 on the horizon, what matchup is standing out to you?
Well, it's really unfortunate. Everybody was looking forward to this game with New York at Dallas. The look-ahead line, the early look-ahead line had Dallas at -3.5. Now without Aaron, that line has been bumped up all the way to 9.5. So there's a big difference between Aaron and Zach. No offense, Zach, but both teams are still 1-0. I think it's still a marquee, interesting game.
Yeah, we'll see if Zach Wilson can hang. All right, thank you so much, Jay. I'll send it back to you in studio, Dave.
All right, thanks to you too. After throwing for about 8,000 yards last week, can Bill Belichick and his boys slow down that high-flying Miami offense? Plus, can New York overcome the loss of Aaron Rodgers? See why our champion, Brandon Marshall, still believes.
As we take our first time out, before their Thursday night loss to Detroit, Kansas City was the active league leader in consecutive opening day wins with 8. But which team has the all-time record? The answer after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you which team holds the all-time record for consecutive opening day wins. The answer, Dallas. They won 17 straight openers from 1965 to 1981.
All right, here we are flying high above Allegiant Stadium, home of the big game in February. We cannot wait for that. Hey, scan that QR code on your screen and you'll feel like a champion too. It's going to take you to our website, beattheoddstv.com. Well, this big guy next to me played in a couple of those big games, winning a ring with Denver back in the day. Brandon Marshall back with us once again. Good to have you back, my man.
Oh, yeah, it's good to be back.
Well, last week we talked about that New York defense, and you thought they could be the dominant defense of the entire league, and they really showed up, and they had to show up because of that heartbreaking injury to Aaron Rodgers so early in the game.
Yeah.
But, man, when that defense had to show up, whew,
yeah,
they were a nightmare for Josh Allen.
They definitely showed up, and they showed out. 3 interceptions. They were stopping the run. They did a fantastic job overall, and they gave the backup quarterback a chance, right? And they gave him a chance, and they ended up winning the ball game.
Right. Yeah.
It's very disheartening that Aaron Rodgers went down, but that defense is as advertised.
Psychologically, when someone of the stature of an Aaron Rodgers, you lose them for the season, like how deflating is that for the locker room?
Oh, it's very deflating because, those guys had big game aspirations. They wanted to be at Allegiant Stadium. And so with him going down, it kind of just brings the team morale down. It does, but at the end of the day, it's a next man up mentality. Unfortunately, they won't have a Aaron Rodgers quality, quarterback.
No, there's not another one of those laying around for sure.
Man. They got to find somebody in free agency, I think.
It was definitely a weird week 1, as it tends to be in the league. Is there a defense or a couple that stood out? Maybe one in a good way, one in a bad way for you?
Yeah, look, Dallas stood out in a fantastic way. They had interception return for touchdown. They forced 3 turnovers. They blocked. They blocked the field goal. For a touchdown. They looked amazing. They were flying around the football. The way that New York looked in that first game, it couldn't have gone any worse for them.
Truly,
a 40-0 football game in the first game it was just terrible.
And quickly, the bad one.
Oh, man, Pittsburgh,
No hesitation on that one.
No, San Francisco, they almost averaged 6 yards per play, right? So that's every 2 plays is the first down.
Yeah.
That is demoralizing for a defense. They couldn't stop anybody. San Francisco had 188 yards rushing.
Right.
And so, if you can't stop the run, then it's tough to win the ball game.
Last thing, you got a cool honor. You got to flip the coin before the Denver-Las Vegas game and got to take a picture with an old buddy of yours, if we can pop it up. Look at you.
Yeah, that was I wanted my daughter to meet Peyton Manning, and as you can see, she's crying. She's not happy, but I was happy, and this picture will last throughout the year. So it was amazing honor to be out there for the coin toss and to see my old friend.
Was it heads or tails?
Oh, it was tails.
Like you called it last week.
Fails.
Oh, wow, way to go. All right, Brandon, thank you so much. Well, after a pretty wonky week 1, there are definitely some betting trends you can kind of hop on and follow here in week 2. So here's Teddy with more on that.
Let's talk about Tampa Bay and Chicago. This is one that stands out to me right now. Really, we're looking at Tampa -2.5, -3, depending on where you shop. And look, we already talked about it at the top of the show. The trends clearly say to back the 0-1 team against the 1-0 team. And when the 1-0 team is a false favorite, that goes even double. Tampa only gained 3.6 yards per play in Minnesota last week. They were the beneficiaries of a +3 turnover margin, made all the difference in the ballgame. And worth noting, some of the quotes coming out of the Chicago locker room after the contest, they were embarrassed by their loss to Green Bay. Quote, "We can't ever let that happen again." I think Chicago shows up this week. No surprise they win the game outright. Let's talk about LA and Tennessee. We used Tennessee under the total last week right here on the show. I'm going to do it again this week. Why? Their last 15 games, one has gone over the total of 45. That's the way Mike Vrabel wants to play. Low defensive slugfest, low-scoring defensive slugfest week after week. And I understand LA's defense struggled against Miami last week. Tennessee's offense isn't Miami. Expect a low-scoring game in Nashville.
All right, Jack, you got a couple games you pinpointed too.
I do, yeah. Broad strokes will make you money this time of year. We talked about divisional dogs last week. This week it's going to be underdogs again. Teams that looked really bad. New England plus the points against Miami. A good place to start. New England gained Philadelphia last week by over 150 yards. We're getting value in them. Also, Miami getting a lot of frequent flyer miles with their trip to the West Coast. Now they have to go to New England. That's a bad spot for them. Also, Pittsburgh, it's uncomfortable to play them for sure, but Pittsburgh, Tomlin 15-5-3 against the spread as an underdog, and this is a Pittsburgh team that is not as bad as they appeared. San Francisco's just really, really good.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier in the show too, a team that lost by a lot tends to reverse to the mean the second week.
Yeah, both of these spots have a really high percentage of coming back and covering these small favorite or dog positions 65% of the time. 1 to 2 point favorites, only 34% cover in week 2 in recent history.
All right, fellas. Well, just days after becoming the highest paid player in pro football, Joe Burrow might have had his worst game. See why Jack here is expecting him to bounce back big time. We are talking player props next.
As we go to break, at 19-3, Pittsburgh coach Mike Tomlin holds the second best Monday night coaching record of all time. A win Monday night against Cleveland would get him to 20 Monday night wins. But who is the only coach with a better Monday night record than Mike Tomlin? The answer after the break.
You're watching Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook Westgate, Las Vegas.
Welcome back. Pittsburgh coach Mike Tomlin has the second best Monday night coaching record of all time at 19-3. But who has the best Monday night coaching record? The answer, legendary Oakland head coach John Madden, who was 11-1-1 under those Monday night lights. All right, quick poll time. Raise your hand if you've been personally victimized by week 1. It can't just be me. As a matter of fact, we know there is one guy who had it the worst in week 1. Aaron Rodgers, Mr. 4 snaps, Mr. 75 seconds, Mr. No Achilles. The hope of New York fans crumbling on that opening drive. An injury like this left sportsbooks with a decision to make regarding Rodgers prop bets, though. Many refunded all Rodgers single bets and parlays that had Rodgers in them. Other books stood firm and did not refund. Refunds typically happen when severe game-altering injuries occur. We saw it last season with the scary hit on Tua, and then again with the Damar Hamlin situation. But what does the absence of Rodgers mean for the long-term outlook on this season? Ahead of the Monday night travesty, New York's odds to make the playoffs were -122. pretty decent. Now that this is once again Zach Wilson's team, the odds for New York to miss the playoffs are minus 260, even better odds, unfortunately. Now, division-wise, New York was originally boasting the second shortest odds to clinch the AFC East, priced at plus 250. The number has moved all the way to plus 550, which puts them in third, just ahead of New England. The biggest dagger, though, the conference championship odds, where the Gang Green were once considered serious contenders at 10-1, now 31-1. And it all sounds grim, but for the New Yorkers out there watching, I'm here to say it's not over just yet. It's only week 2. The AFC East is going to be very tight this year. This New York defense is no joke. We just heard it from Brandon Marshall. They're going to keep games close, if not straight up win them. And while Rodgers won't be on the field, the next best thing is him coaching. We saw it in Hard Knocks, working one-on-one with Zach Wilson, just like he did this offseason. And let me tell you, the only reason Wilson made it out alive on Monday is because of that time spent working with Rodgers. Not to mention his targets in Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, and say what you want about Dalvin Cook getting older, but he was the saving grace Monday moving those chains. So yes, the loss of Aaron Rodgers is definitely a huge blow, but Zach Wilson finished with a higher QBR in week 1 than Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. And yes, you can say, no Travis Kelce, the weather was terrible in Ohio, Kadarius Toney doesn't have hands. But again, it's just further proof that anything, and I mean anything, can happen in this league on a weekly basis. So call me crazy, call me optimistic, but I'm not bailing on New York just yet.
Okay, now it is time for our favorite news segment. You guys have heard of the Thrilla in Manila. Well, this is more like the tiff between dudes who don't lift. It's Teddy and Jack beefing over player props. Okay, fellas, today we're talking about Joe Burrow. Had a terrible game 1, so let's put up the split boxes. It's you two staring into your cameras. Somebody go. Make your case.
Joe Burrow, under 266.5 passing yards. To me, it's simple. All right, no preseason means no chemistry. Even with a veteran quarterback, even with a receiving core that's been there, when you don't get those snaps in August, your production struggles early in September. We saw it in week 1 and week 2 from Cincy last year. We saw it last week. I think we'll see it in week 2 again.
So, a little about me. If a UFO appears over Allegiant Stadium, I'm not going to run for my bunker. I'm going to see what happens. Somebody eats all the pie at Thanksgiving, I don't freak out. Because
that person's normally you.
That's right, because somebody else does, because I don't overreact. All right, I go ahead and just wait it out and let's just see what happens. Last time I checked, Joe Burrow was not new to the league. He just got the bag. He's got a ton of money, and I do expect this week to be much, much better. He averaged 297 yards a game last year. This number's down because of what happened last week. That means there's value in going over. I'll take over the number.
Can I throw in a quick wild card?
Okay.
Burrow got a haircut this week. One of the reporters asked him why he did it, and he said it's because he played so poorly on Sunday.
Why is that not in my notes?
Clearly, that's going to be a difference maker, but Joe Burrow's not the whole equation here. The equation includes Cincy's offensive line, which was a sieve last year, which was a sieve in week 1, and now they're facing a tough Baltimore pass rush. So for Burrow to get over this number, he's got to connect downfield. I don't think he has time to throw downfield.
This sieve played late in the year last year. That same bad offensive line. When you have a bad offensive line, you can't run it. Guess what they're going to do then? Boom. Right arm of Burrows down the field, over the total.
Okay, boys, we're going to have to call it right there. It's a tie. It's a tie.
I got more.
No more. You're getting all lathered up. Well, hey, we're not done with you two. Up next, the two dudes who don't lift. We'll be back with our top picks of the week. Plus, we have a mystery box today. Today, the wheel will reveal what's in the box and which one of us paid a lot of money for it.
Before we head to break, with a new start in Denver, Sean Payton is looking to become the 8th coach in league history to lead 2 different teams to the big game. But who are the other 7? That answer after this. All right, before the break, we asked you, Sean Payton is looking to become the 8th coach in league history to lead 2 different teams to the championship game, but who are the other 7? The answer, Don Shula, he did it with Baltimore and Miami. Bill Parcells, who took the G-Men and New England to the title game. Dan Reeves, Dick Vermeil, Mike Holmgren, John Fox, and most recently, Andy Reid, who did it with Philly and Kansas City.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to our Las Vegas studio. We've moved into our favorite room, the football cave.
This feels right? We do a lot of stuff here. Lots of room for activities.
Yes, and these chairs. Top notch. So, as always, let's end big. It's top pick time. Teddy, get us started.
All right, let's talk about KC and Jacksonville. Right now, KC -3, -3.5, depending on where you shop around. They're going to have Chris Jones back this week, which is a big impact on the defensive line, and it's bad news for Jacksonville and their very iffy, dicey offensive line advantage, Kansas City. Home field edge. Oh, the game's in Jacksonville. Who cares? Home teams 4-12 against the spread in week 1. This is a continuing theme dating back to last year, the year before that. Home field advantages declining year after year. And last but not least, Andy Reid off a loss, 7-0 against the spread. His last 7 tries, 6 of those wins coming by more than a field goal.
All right, Jack, you nailed your pick last week. Who do you like?
I did, yeah, and a very comfortable pick to play. I'm not sure I'm making friends with teams like Tampa Bay, but I will tell you, I do like under the total in the Miami-New England game. It's a Miami offense that everybody knows went to the West Coast. They're really building up their frequent flyer miles with lots of offensive output. I like under the total because I think their offense will regress. New England, not going to be too open, too aggressive, more conservative game plan. And primetime games always going under. Undefeated in week 1 on 122-80 run in primetime games to the under. Let's go under in New England, Miami.
All right. Well, now it's time for our nemesis, the wheel of keeping it real. It's our heads on a Vegas-style slot machine. And today we have a mystery box. All right, let's find out what's in the box and who it belongs to. Let's spin it. I mean, Mariah's holding it. That's kind of a giveaway. Yes. All right,
What
Mariah.
do we have?
What's in the box?
Guys, it's Christmas morning, and we have
Wow.
my prized possession. They're a little flimsy from being in storage, but you know what? They, I guess you could say they're a good investment. We'll ask my mom how
If
she
those were
feels.
size 11 and didn't have a weight limit, I would love to borrow them.
All you.
Those shoes cost more than my entire wardrobe.
Yes.